What is it?
Sorry.
Yes, it is. That is okay. Again, we're just going to talk about what CVs and resumes are, where we use them, and just some of the pitfalls and things that we can avoid. And then we're going to move into the workshopping. So of course, we have Dr. Nikki Traylor-Knowles with us, who is not only the president of BWEEMS, she is also a professor. She is also a researcher. She is also so many more things that I am going to leave out. So Nikki, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, please.
I mean, you did a great job. That's that's me. Y'all know me. Okay.
Yeah, so she's running things over here at BWEEMS. And I'm Chris. I think I've seen every one of you. Maybe Erica, I haven't seen you, ma'am. But I need to. So at any rate, I'm one of the co-chairs on the board. And if you haven't seen me, you'll get to shortly. So first, what are we talking about, right? And we're all pretty familiar with what a resume is, right? So just take a look. You don't have to actually zoom in to see the words, but you know that's a resume from 10 Miles Running. It's something that we use to apply for regular jobs. It's a non-academic piece of paper that just lists the things that we've accomplished in a professional realm. It's a summary of our experiences. Typically, we keep our resumes to 1 to 2 pages. 2 is excessive, and it needs to be something that people can scan quickly. Visually, it has to have demarcations. We can recognize it easily. It includes personal information, usually a statement of purpose or a summary of your skills, and then a reverse chronological order of your jobs. Most of us that are in science are not using this, so I'm kind of glossing over that. What we are using is a CV, and it looks a little more like this, which kind of is just a really nice list. We use it when we're applying for positions in academia, when we're applying for research positions, grants, funding. We want to list our accomplishments so we can become tenured professors one day, like somebody in this room will be, any of those things. So it's a summary of our educational and professional background, not just the jobs that we've had that may be unrelated. It also lists our publications. It lists the awards and the funding we've received. Any sort of research experience that's relevant to what you're applying to, and of course, professional affiliation, which can sometimes be on a resume if it's pertinent. One of the notes it says is that it will be read thoroughly by a search committee. I did mark this for the simple fact that unless you make it to the short list or a high level, CVs are also not reviewed in great depth. I think the average HR and committee spend upwards of 45 to 90 seconds only on your resume or CV. So what are some best practices? You have this piece of paper, you want people to know who you are, and you know it's only going to take you about 30 seconds for somebody to take a look and say, is this the candidate I even want to bother with? So the first thing are your logistics. You need to make one document, or you should rather make one document that holds everything you've done. Every place you've been to school, every award you've received, every piece of funding, the cool things that you've taught or presentations that you've led, all of it. It's best to put it in a few categories. It's even better to have it in reverse chronological order, but this particular master document is the document that you will pull from. So the more you put it together, the easier it is for your future self to use it. The other logistic for a CV, once you have your master document and you want to create the new one for whatever position you're looking for, you want to format it enough so that you're able to distinguish between the education, the professional experience, the relevant research experience, but you don't want to format it so much that it's flowery. We don't want italics and bolds and underlines. We want something that's uniform, easy to look through, and looks clean. The same thing goes with fonts. You want something simple. You don't want to use Wingdings and Courier up here, but Times down here. Stick with one thing that's readable. Typically, Times New Roman is used, but we find that the sans class of fonts are the easiest to be read by persons on screens. So stick with an open sans or anything of that nature. Sans serif is the other one. Couldn't think of it. You need to order your document in order to highlight your strengths. So if you have extensive educational experience, but not a lot of professional experience, put your educational experience, research experience, first. If you have a great professional background, but maybe just your bachelor's degree, let's say, throw that up there, but immediately follow it with what you've done well in the research while you were doing that. You don't have to put anything flowery. You don't have to make things up, but order it in a way that it highlights your strengths first. And a common pitfall that I did not realize until I started looking, people do not put their names on any pages but the first one. Please put your name on your work. Put your name up front on the first page, and then in a header with page numbers on any subsequent pages. So that's shocking, but it needs to be said. I've lost my second piece. Okay, so on to the content. Logistically, we now have ourselves in order. We know what kind of document, we know what we should format it like, so what should we put on it? We need to tailor this content to what we're applying for. If you are looking for funding through Ford, I believe they are looking for people who want to teach and do great things in teaching. So you would not use your experience for anything that's not teaching. You would use those experiences. So if you were a research assistant in a lab, you wouldn't say, I did X, Y, and Z technical. You would say, I taught a team of 4 people to do X, Y, and Z technical. So when I say content tailoring, not just the experience itself, include the things that are important, but also take a minute to go over that description and make sure it matches what you're applying for. You may not realize that you've done more than just a few things that you listed on that piece of paper. Give yourself just a few minutes to sit down and think, how does this apply to what I'm applying to? Remove any unnecessary jargon. And that means all of it that you can do relevantly. There are some terms that you cannot get around, but anything that tends to be university specific, anything like very specific software that only one place uses, you can list specialized software. You don't actually have to say what it is until they ask you. Try to stay away from things like, I go to UW. There's about 47 UWs. They don't know which one I meant. I go to the University of Washington. Write that out. Chronological order within categories is actually incorrect. It should be reverse chronological order within categories. When you're listing your college experience, you want where you graduated from, then the next, then the next. You don't want, don't put junior high, don't put high school, college only. When you list jobs, you want where you are now, where you've been, that's relevant. So that is the typo I have. It doesn't have to be 14 pages. 2 pages may be a better choice for you. If you have only 2 pages worth of experience that are relevant, even though you have a 14-page CV in your master document. And of course, the big one that is easy to overlook when we're rushing, proofread. I did not clearly proofread this slide, or I would have caught reverse chronological order. So that is a very much real-time example of why you should proofread. So it doesn't sound too hard. It seems like something we can all do. So why is it that people get stuck? First, because we talk too much. We have too many things to dance around what we've actually done. Or conversely, our friends who are the queens of brevity, just saying, I was a lab tech, infectious disease, not an answer. It does not explain what you've done. We do not have the ability to really drive home why you're qualified for what you're applying for. The other problem is that you're using either too much jargon or you are trying to incorporate too many topics in one sentence. It's okay to have a description that's a few sentences. Compound sentences are kind of your enemy in this zone. With that being said, passive voice. The work does not magically happen and you weren't just happened to be there. You performed the work. So speak and type in active voice. Put your subject next to your action word and make them neighbors for life. Again, too much is on there. It's too general. I worked in 3 labs. I was on 4 boats. I taught 3 classes. That's all inconsequential. We don't have any idea what that actually means without context. So use something consistent. If you say you taught 3 classes, that has to be explained. I taught 3 ecology courses for this many credit hours. Keywords are really big for resumes. They are big for CVs as well, but resumes tend to be scanned through an HR database. So use the position keywords that are listed in whatever the listing is. Formatting again, please format consistently and classically is the word I believe my mother would use. When less is more, we call it classic. Usually it's all caps. You don't have to bold, you can, but that's about as much formatting as you need to delineate on a CV. Resumes, you can have some line breaks, but again, minimal. We don't need stacked lines. We don't need extra funny bulletin points. We just need the basics. When you're describing your skill sets, we need the real world outcomes. So if you were able to write for 4 grants, did you receive 4 grants? If you were able to mentor 16 students, kind of what was the outcome there? So what is the real world implication of what it is that you're discussing? And then please, ladies, in this specific room, and it's the only place I will say this, do not sell yourself short. Do not. Every single one of you has done more than you believe you have done. Take a minute to write it out and then go back and hone it. Editing is your friend. When you edit while you are trying to remember what you've done, you will sell yourself short every time. So, for example, if you are a new person on a job and you wrote this for a proposal or for your job position, that's okay. It's vague. I mean, the action words are first. It doesn't actually give us any good indication that you know what you're doing. But this is the same job description. If you just flesh out a single sentence, it gives us context. It helps us understand what you actually did when you provided research and development. Who did you provide that to? Quality departments, all the QC departments. If you assisted in development, a development of what? Methodologies and timelines. So try to keep in mind that they don't know what you did, even if it is a science position in the same field you're in. They have no idea what you did. Tell them. If you are brand new and you don't have any experience, again, this is okay, but we don't know what you've done. Did I do the same thing twice? No, I did not. Thank God. I said, oh no. Again, I'm sorry. Let's go back real quick so you can see it. Provided research, wrote proposals, worked on various projects. Fine. What did you actually do? If you don't have multiple job descriptions where you can use that as an explanation, you have to say what you did. This is the research that you did. You conducted tests on these things. You prepared for this. You prepared samples. This is how you did it. This is what it takes. And finally, for your education, that is what it should look like. Do not include your GPA unless your GPA was a 4.0. Predominantly, you will put this style of education in for a resume, not necessarily a CV. They just want to see the year and where you went. If you had a double major, it's fine if you are early on in your career and you don't have too much to back up what you've been doing. And for those of you uber smart ladies, magna cum laude is all lowercase after your degree title or laude. Okay, so when we are finished today, these are the final take-home keys that you should remember. Keep all of your documents somewhere you can access them quickly. Have the solicitation in front of you. What are they saying? What are they asking for? What is the language that they're using? Do a dive on the organization if you have the time, which you should make. And then build a new, I cannot stress this enough, build a new document, a new CV that pulls from what you have in your master CV. Give it a naming system. I put 2 here that I use regularly. work with yourself in a naming system. At 11:50, last name, first name, CV, no job title, you don't actually know which one's the right one. If you use a year and then your name and like acronym, you're going to forget what that is. So give yourself a fighting chance to be successful.